Hello everyone, it's Chad with MBTV, and today's topic is actually going to be in regards to everything. And I kind of want to cover a few things that kind of happened in the last 24 hours, and I also want to cover a little bit about credentials and credentialing and why, well, my perspective on it. So that being said, I woke this morning and I did my normal morning routine and checked my comments on YouTube, and I had a nice little comment from Eric with Talking with Famous People, a channel I'd rather admire, and I still do. And this comment was kind of enlightening for me. Obviously, he posted a pretty funny video about, and it was funny, but I think he was serious yet sarcastic about the video I recently posted, which was ENTP and handling disagreements. And of course, he totally roasted me, and I find this pretty amusing. You know, and I think the interesting part is what can we learn from these things as we move forward? And I mean we as in not Eric and I, but ultimately everyone. What can we really learn from these things? And so I'll tell you what I've learned from this whole experience. Number one is that consolidating information and trying to make these 1-minute videos that I've posted recently, these short little videos, is not really my style. I've tried the editing process, and I've tried to work with that at request of the viewers of this channel to make things more consolidated, and I feel like I leave out very, very important information, and information that sometimes is exuded through me incessantly talking. And some people can't handle that, and I understand that, so maybe my channel isn't for everyone, but I do feel like that does eventually get my point out. I don't have scripts, I don't use bullet points, I don't generally have an idea of what the hell I'm going to say until I actually talk it through. So editing could help. I'm terrible at it. And so that being said, I generally just kind of rant my ideas on until I feel like my point is actually out there. That's led to the length of my videos. And by shortening those, I don't feel like I get my point across. So maybe someday I'll get an editor who can, you know, figure out what the hell I'm trying to say and cut it down to its very, very minimal length. But at this point, I think I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it and get the point across. Okay, that being said too, what I've also learned is when addressing NTs, NTs in particular, NTPs, it's good to provide rationale. I think the 1-minute video addressed ENTPs put ENTPs in a position to where I guess they felt like maybe I was targeting them, or maybe that it was a general advice to all ENTPs, whereas that video was specifically targeted for people who were having difficulty handling disagreements. I think handling disagreements obviously is more complex than what can be put into a 1-minute video. And Eric brought up some really interesting points. He brought up the point of what if there's a value conflict? Or what if you're actually right and someone is wrong? Okay, and these are particular things that should be considered during these disagreements. Okay, so what I wasn't trying to say, and I want to clarify, what I wasn't trying to say was that you should secede your argument and then say, hey, everybody, let's be friends. That's not my particular angle. When someone is incorrect, okay, there's multiple ways to approach it. We can be the critical questioning type, which is obviously my natural instinct, is to just critically question. I can say, you know what, you're wrong, and let me show you why you're wrong. Okay. Certain types don't handle that well. Certain types do not see that as valuable. Certain types may get defensive. Certain types may get sensitive. And, you know, whereas I think in this particular critique, Eric critiquing me, obviously he provided rationale for his disagreement. He provided good insight to why my video was rather useless. And he was, in my opinion, very correct. And so I don't really disagree with him on his points. I actually agree with him. It's just that I didn't put that information to where it was practical and useful. Whereas I think some people found value in that video, and that's great. That's what it was designed to do. There are other people who look beyond what is just there at the 1 minute and go, wow, this is really empty. And it was. And I wasn't totally satisfied with the video myself, but I was crossing my fingers and hoping it would provide some type of value as I'm trying this new technique to keep the video shorter. So that being said, I think Eric's really insightful. I think he's got good perspective. I think he's obviously studied MBTI for a while, and he really understands different angles and understands reasoning and rationale. So I don't have anything bad to say about him. And that's something I do want to get out there as well. With that being said, I also learned that, you have to provide enough practical value to make something worthwhile. And just putting videos up for the sake of putting them up and for the sake of hoping is just not efficient. It's not effective. And it was me testing something, and obviously I didn't do a good job, and I totally admit that. And so I hope in the future that I have more advisors like Eric that can kind of point me in the right direction when I'm putting value or information up, that I can actually provide more value to the viewers on this channel. So I do apologize for lack of value. And I think it's really, really important that we look at disagreement or conflict as something that you can grow and gain from. Whereas I think anybody could have taken Eric's comments in a way of being offended, and I wasn't offended. I thought it was rather funny because I agreed, number one, and number two is just he has a humorous slant. I enjoy watching his stuff because it is pretty humorous to watch. So I think that the real thing that we have to learn and gain from this is just understanding that conflict isn't always someone attacking you as a person or trying to destroy you as a person, and maybe sometimes that's the case, but when you can see through the criticism, and you can see that they're attacking an idea or a concept or whatever it may be. Now he also attacked my credential of being a certified MBTI practitioner, and I also agree with him on this angle too. Anybody can, as long as they have the means, financial means or whatever, can get a piece of paper. Obviously these certifying agencies, all of them, I would say mostly, are businesses. Actually, all of them are businesses, and they're designed to generate revenue. Whether they're nonprofit or not, they generate revenue. In order to generate more revenue, what does a business have to do? It has to make the product more accessible to the market, and this includes public education. With that being said, to make it more accessible, it has to make it on a level where people can understand it. The mass amount of people can understand the content. That being said, a piece of paper really means nothing. The only thing the credential gives me, being a certified MBTI practitioner, is the ability to administer the official instrument. The official instrument obviously has been thoroughly tested. It has been thoroughly designed to help to rule out the inconsistencies that other instruments you may use online, the free ones, that don't have it. They haven't been tested like that. They haven't been through many, many different studies. They're kind of just, I could program one today and make an instrument, and how many times has it been tested? So that's the only thing it allows me to do, is actually administer that instrument. It doesn't mean that I'm more knowledgeable than anybody else. It doesn't mean that I'm smarter than anybody else. It doesn't mean that I know more about MBTI than anybody else. I always look at myself like a student. I'll probably never call myself an expert, even though I'm always ongoing in education, ongoing in my continuing education, and learning more things about MBTI, and watching other videos and learning other things that there are to learn about MBTI. And I always look at Insight and go, wow, that's an interesting perspective, as long as they provide rationale for their angle. There are some things out there that I do disagree with, and I try to provide rationale as well. Lately, I've been going through a lot of stress myself, and the stress has obviously come out on a lot of my comments, and sometimes I've come off as short, condescending, and even in some interpersonal relationships of mine. And I think this has obviously infringed on me, and it's put me into a position where I've learned to further explore why I've been behaving in a certain way. And I think in MBTI, the whole purpose of it is understanding where we're starting. It's a starting point. It's not, hey, this is what I am and I accept it for this way, but it's a starting point learning, hey, where do we need to go from here? How do we grow as people? And that's what I want everyone to learn from this video, is that you start out with these particular preferences. For me, it's TE, NI, SE, or SI in some theories, and then FI. And that's where I start out. Those are the things, and I started out with TE and NI, and as I moved and got older and tried to grow, I experienced SE and FI, and then I have to move into more of FI and FE and understanding TI and understanding these things so I can grow as a person and embracing the shadow side, which, Carl Jung believed that was, our key to development, was really embracing that shadow aspect of our character. And I've had friends tell me this, and sometimes I just get defensive. Sometimes I get, I don't want to understand it, don't want to hear it. There's just not the right time to approach these angles. And as I've explored this, I've realized my patience has increased in dealing with other personality types. And I think this is a huge angle for MBTI, because I think otherwise everything that I could have taken in previously could have been more offensive or more irritating than it naturally has been in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and seeing these changes. Obviously, I credit a lot of that to understanding MBTI and the roots of it. And that being said, I think there's a lot more to understand than what I know. And again, you know, diving into the credentials, this doesn't mean anything. I think anybody can get a piece of paper as long as you have the financial means. The test isn't hard. The MBTI administrative tool for the basic certification is rather easy. I think anybody who studies MBTI can pretty much pass it and become certified. So does this make me more eligible to give you advice or not? No, I do not think it does. I think that you know, there's a lot more intelligent people out there about MBTI than me. Obviously, I don't research it, I don't study it, I say I don't study it, but I don't actively participate in the studies that they conduct, is what I meant. And so there's a lot of people who know a lot more than I do. In fact, the person who taught the course is quite knowledgeable on MBTI and impressed me quite a bit. And so there's an angle that we have to understand about these things, and I think that angle is coming from a place of humility, realizing that, you know, you're not always right. And I admit that I was not right in a lot of these things. And even in my old videos, you know, there's an old video that really still irritates me to this day, and I'm so tempted to take it down, but I don't, because there's a principle that I'm trying to convey. And that principle is there's a place to grow. And I think if you can look at the past and go back and go, okay, here's what you're seeing where Chad started out as back in 2015, and my biases and my stereotypes and my depictions of each type, you can see kind of the growth process. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to convey here, is that it's a growth process. And so there's a few videos of my old channel, and I say my old channel, rather before it was MBTV, where you could see that growth process. And you can see where I try to grow as a person, and you can see the mistakes I've made. And a lot of people still comment on it and tell me I'm wrong, and you know what, they're right, but at the same time, there's a big link at the top that says click for the updated video. And yet they somehow miss that. So I try not to respond to those comments, because it's like responding to 17th century theories when we're in the 21st century. So that being said, I do hope this video provides value and provides insight, and kind of where MBTI's rest. MBTI is the starting point, it's the starting step, and seeing our differences. And I know Erica, he had posted a video afterward, you know, almost like feeling bad for what he did, but he didn't really feel bad, obviously. He believes he was justified in that, and I think he was. You know, now if I were probably somebody who would be a little more defensive, I might have taken offense to his comments. But I don't. I think he might be correct on some of his assumptions, even about my character, and it'll give me a chance to really introspect and see perhaps that there is an angle that he really said, or something that he conveyed that I wasn't aware of in my personality that maybe comes off that way, which is something I've learned recently in a particular course called Type 360, which talks about, you know, how others perceive your functions, not how they work for you, but the effectiveness and their functionality and the perception of those functions being displayed in the environment. And maybe that's how my functions are coming off. And again, I've never posted, you know, certified MBTI practitioner to try to tell you that I know more. It's simply that I'm officially allowed to administer the instrument, and should you be curious about type and trust that I can give you valuable content, and also at the same time I can convey information and help you verify and validate your type, ultimately it's your choice to figure out what your type is, then you can choose me to do that. Otherwise, there's plenty of other certified professionals out there who can do that as well. That was the only intention, that why I've branded myself that way. But again, I don't necessarily think that I know more than everyone else, and just because that Eric may not be certified in MBTI, obviously he knows a lot about it, and there's a lot of people out there that I've learned from that aren't certified. In fact, there's quite a few people. When I started out learning from Michael Pierce, and I don't believe Michael Pierce is certified, but I can tell you he's a great enthusiast, and he knows quite a bit about MBTI, and you know, I think that he was one of the foundations of me learning. Myers-Briggs was watching his videos, and he was one of the only people I watched in the beginning. And just because he wasn't certified, do I discredit everything I learned from him? Absolutely not. He did a lot of research, and he consolidated information, spent his time trying to provide that in very, very reliable videos that obviously are very popular on YouTube, and they're still very valuable. So information is not discredited because you don't have a credential. And that goes for public education too. If you have the means and the way to afford a degree, you can have a degree, but just because you don't have a degree, don't prejudge someone because they don't have a degree. Don't think someone is stupid because they're not educated in something, okay? And they're not educated in the sense of this or that. And I say educated, rather I mean schooled. Let's differentiate the two, education versus schooling. And we need to keep that in mind, that just because they don't have the traditional school, they still could be very educated, because there's this thing called the internet now, and everybody can become self-educated, and that really helps. And I think degrees are losing their credibility these days. I mean, still they get you a doorway into a job, but I think they're losing a lot of credibility because of the internet. And it's hard for these public institutions to keep people, and I say keep in the sense of being able to retain, you know, the interest in school, because there's so many ways to get the same information elsewhere at free, I mean at no cost. And that's where the challenge for public education is. So what do they have to do? Make their programs more appealable, lower the educating standards, try to make it to where everybody can pass, therefore pump more students out. It's a business. Look at it that way. I mean, that's what all these agencies are. Anyway, with that being said, I hope this video does provide value to you. And thanks, Eric, for, you know, calling me out on my shit. And yeah, I'll say shit. Yeah, he called me out on my shit, and love to talk to you sometime. I mean, obviously you and I have never talked over GoToMeeting or face-to-face or Hangouts or whatever else, and I'm sure that we could have some great discussions, potentially debates about certain things, you know, so appreciate it. And yeah, I think that's a good, and anybody who's watching this kind of particular interaction, you can see kind of the NTJ, NTP way of doing things. It's a great example of the NTJ doing something fast and rapidly because they think it might be effective, and the NTP really ripping it to pieces and realizing the process wasn't effective at all. And so for people to, you know, be biased and say that NTPs don't look at the big picture, that's incorrect as well. I think both intuitives do see the big picture, but they see it in a different way. With that being said, thank you so much, and hope you have a great rest of the day.